Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you know exactly how powerful a podcast can be. Whether it's for entertainment, personal growth, commute time, or your daily, maybe weekly workout in the gym, podcasts are the medium that millions of people use to get the content that they're looking for. And the question I get most often is, how do you create your podcast? If you haven't heard about Anchor, I'll tell you because a good friend told me. First of all, it's free. We always like to lead with the good stuff. The platform has all the tools you need to record and edit your podcast, all from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Anchor then goes to work for you by distributing your podcast episodes for you so it's able to be heard on all the top platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. Best of all, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's a one-stop shop to create your podcast and get your voice heard and your story told. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Representing East Oakland, man.
Welcome back. Another episode of the Hawk Vision podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Hawkins. Guys, I always want to thank you for spending some time. I know you could be anywhere in the world doing whatever you want to do outside of, typical quarantine rules, but you're here to rock with us. The guest that I have today is somebody that was put on my radar and I am absolutely fond of. Uzoma Obidike is the founder of She Leads Beautifully. She has a highly impressive 10-year background in education and has transformed her career into one of the most successful and fastest growing career coaches. She comes with absolute documented receipts. If you jump on her website, you'll see all the reviews. Success is attracted to her in a manner that I am absolutely excited about. While she is an entrepreneur, I love her story and her mission because everyone isn't always cut out to be an entrepreneur, and her specialty is helping women further their careers through leadership development, networking, and brand management. She's been recognized by the International Association of Career Advisors and received the 2019 Influential Women Award in Education. Uzoma, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chuck. Wow, that was a wonderful introduction. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for jumping on. We were put together by the great one, so I have so much to get out. I think our backgrounds are going to merge perfectly, like we were talking about. I have a career background in corporate recruitment, and so with your focus, I think it's going to be awesome.
This is great. I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. So let's start with background. What actually got you into the coaching mentorship space and launching She Leads Beautifully?
Wonderful question. Well, I kind of fell into being an official career coach by accident.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship was not an accident. I have always wanted to start my own business. Coming from a family of entrepreneurs and being Nigerian, it's kind of in my blood. A lot of Nigerians are always in business and, trying different things. And that's kind of how it is for a lot of us. And so I had my first influence through my parents. My parents run their own businesses, and I've always known, like my father in particular, to have always had a business. He had a African food store in Chicago, one of the premier people who had African food supplies in Chicago before, what it is now today, up into having a variety of other things that he's doing. And so I always admired how much he would have an idea and say, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Right.
Yeah.
And then just to see over the years how he's still doing his own thing. He has the freedom and flexibility. So I knew that I wanted something like that in my life as I've gotten older and wanted to, do more with my career. So it was in 2014, I think, when I first had the idea to start something. I've always had a variety of interests. I've wanted to be a hairstylist and own my own salon. I wanted to be a makeup artist. I wanted to start an event planning business because, it was an interest of mine and I did these things quite well.
Yeah.
But when it came down to really wanting to start an official business and make a difference in the world, I was like, well, what is it that I can do to really create and leave an impact on people around me? And one, of course, is being a woman and knowing the challenges that I faced in my career and life. I wanted to be able to do that for other women. But I didn't know how to put the two together. So ended up hiring a coach to help me narrow down my ideas. And my very first coach, asked me a ton of questions. And from what I've shared with her, she's like, well, you're a career coach. And I'm like, excuse me? This has nothing to do with hair or event planning or any of this stuff. Like, what do you mean? Right? But she helped me connect it back to the work that I was already doing in higher education with my team members, with my peers. People will come to me all the time and ask me, well, how did you get here in your career? How are you how are you able to network your way into certain opportunities? And how did you get your seat at the table? And just all of these things that I just thought, came naturally to everyone. And I realized it did not.
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. Let me pursue this further. And so around the same time, 2013, I started my doctoral program. So I'm working towards my PhD in higher education leadership. And so my dissertation topic is related to the role that the conforming pressures of physical appearance plays on the professional trajectory of senior level women in higher education. That's a long title.
I was about to,
but in short,
real quick. I was going to say for regular people,
in layman's terms, in layperson's terms, in layperson's terms, really, I really wanted to focus on physical appearance, personal branding in the workplace, and how people are moving up, right?
Yes.
So long story short, tons of ideas kind of turned into She Leads Beautifully. So leading with charisma, leading with grace, leading with, purpose, and all of these things, right? And so that's kind of where the name came from initially. But over the years, I have since transitioned into more focused on women who are in stalled careers, who are seeking to land their dream jobs. So after having an audience and doing research on the people who I'm currently serving, that's kind of the direction that I've taken, because that's where I saw the most need. But there is still part of my brand where my initial vision with the personal branding, all of that is still in there as well.
I love it. So this is a special episode for me because, like I said, I have a corporate recruitment background, and I've seen people be absolutely miserable in their jobs, yet scared to make a move to another role or another company. How do you help people in that space where they know they're unfulfilled, they know they hate waking up in the morning, but yet they're scared to make a move, even to a competitive company where, I've always been a fan, make a move every 3 to 5 years because your salary goes with you, right? Like you get the new market rate. How do you help people in that space when they're scared to make a move?
Well, one of the first things that I do in my programs is focus on emotional intelligence and just focusing on self. Mindset is huge.
Yes. And
a lot of times we create these roadblocks that don't really exist. And so I help my clients to really dig deep down inside to figure out, okay, first of all, what is your why? Like, why is it that you are ready to make this move? Okay. And so if it has to do with you being, miserable in your job or bored, all of those things are important. But then, okay, well, where and why do you want to go there? So kind of addressing those two questions and tackling those things that are hindering them. So for example, switching their mindset from things like, I'm afraid of what's next because I haven't been there before. Yeah. Okay, well, that's fine. But how can we reframe that into, okay, I haven't been there before, but there's so much on the other side that I could be missing out and my life could be greater. So just trying to reframe those negative or limiting beliefs into something that's more positive and forward facing, and showing that there is so much on the other side. Now, granted, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but you won't know that unless you actually take that step forward. And so some people always say things like, oh, I don't feel confident. And for me, it's like, you don't need confidence. You actually just need courage to step out and face your fears and do something different, something new.
No, totally agree. I think it's funny to me when I hear the term dream job, because a lot of people will, in what I've seen, I hate being politically correct, but what I've seen is that people will consider their dream job to be the exact same job, just at another company, instead of looking to level up. And so when it comes to networking, how do you approach the networking in the job when we have this applicant tracking system barrier that's in front of, we're applying to these blind websites and answering all the questions, then attaching the resume? Like, that's another whole episode. But how do you approach that? No, you're fine. How do you approach that part where,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I look at myself and where I was when I was first, newly in my career. A lot of the times we are taught how to search for a job when we're at the entry level. So let's say you're first out of school, maybe college, or your first job ever. We're always taught a certain way to conduct a search process.
Right.
And that process usually works at the entry level. But as we move to a certain point in our career where we're looking to move up, perhaps breaking certain ceilings and going to senior level positions or making a career transition, a lot of those strategies that we learned earlier on in our careers are not going to work. And so a lot of the clients that I see, or just people who I talk to in general, are saying, well, I have applied for 250 jobs, or I've sent this many applications and resumes, but nothing is working for me, or I can't seem to get my foot in the door for this new role or organization. And so my question is, well, what are you doing to actually get there? And it's the same things. It's, I just want to update my resume and I want to go apply through the job boards. And so there's nothing wrong with the job boards. It's just that it shouldn't be their only strategy.
Yes.
And the problem with that is most people have not been taught what the other strategies are. And so that's where I come in and other career coaches come in to share that, because no one teaches networking, right? They say, oh, well, go out there and use your network, or, your network is your net worth, and tap into your people. And people are like, okay, well, I get that, but what exactly do I need to do step by step in order to get access to these roles, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's definitely the issue at hand, and I'm going on and on. I think I forgot your original question.
That's so funny. No, I think I love it. I love it. No, it's perfectly fine. Like I said, a casual conversation, because I know that in that we're gonna have a lot of truths uncovered, and we're gonna have a lot of nuggets that'll pop out. But we were talking initially about the dream job being the exact same job, right, with another company, instead of ramping up to the next level. But what you said actually leads to a better question, I think, and that's, how do we network effectively in corporate America? Because I think in normal terms, right, for entrepreneurs, networking is beneficial. It's mutually beneficial. But for corporate, it's networking because you have a need and you need to, climb that ladder. So how do you approach networking in the corporate space?
Yeah, great point. So networking in the corporate space, I think some people a lot of times are looking at networking as very transactional.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, I'm looking for a job, so I should probably go and call my, people in my network and see if they can do me a favor. Or I'm going to hop on LinkedIn and send a bunch of messages like, hey, I need a job.
Yes.
And so, like, no, don't do that, please. So there's this quote, I forget the author of this book, but it's, you want to dig the well before you're thirsty. And how I see networking is, yes, there is some mutual benefit, but you don't want to go into it with that. And so to always be keeping your network healthy over time and making your networking activities a daily habit. Yeah. So the same way we wake up in the morning, and I know you like to drink coffee, I might drink something else. And so it's just like hot chocolate is my favorite, in case anybody's like, what does she mean by that? And then Coke is sometimes.
I love it.
But brushing your teeth every day is a habit.
Yes.
Waking up and hopping in the shower is a habit. And so when you're looking to advance in your career, make a pivot, complete transition, or meet the right people, in air quotes, you have to be making this a regular habit just to have conversations with people and just talk to them like normal human beings. And I think sometimes we tend to overcomplicate it. And there are various factors of why people have challenges with networking and building relationships. But in short, really, it's just having conversations, just like we're doing right now. I have conversations multiple times throughout the week, on LinkedIn, having on, short phone calls, sending emails, things like that. And I don't go into it thinking, what can I get out of this person?
Right.
But as I look back at pretty much every opportunity I've had to this date, there is one or two people who have had some level of influence in me getting access to that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so whether it's a referral, whether it's, hey, I thought about you, I want to ask you to come in, be on this podcast, or I want to see if you want to collaborate on this book, or, hey, I heard about this job, I think will be great for you, things like that come up that we don't always see, right away. But the fact that you are, brushing your teeth every day and then your teeth just are naturally white and sparkling, there isn't one particular thing that you did to get your teeth white and sparkling.
Right.
But it's that daily brushing of your teeth and flossing, and perhaps, if you're using mouthwash or whatever other things that you use in your dental oral hygiene process, or like working out, for example, right? You're not going to work out today and then tomorrow have, the most fit body. It's a series of activities that you're going to do over a period of time that you're going to begin to see results. And there's no difference with networking and nurturing your relationship.
Yeah, I wish it worked overnight, because the cheesecake and the Cinnabons, like, they don't always, it's not an equal trade-off, right? The crunches and the Cinnabons it's not equal.
Nope. Yep. And then that book, if you don't know if you've ever heard of it, by Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, talks about that.
Absolutely.
And so if you're eating the Cinnabons every day and you think, oh, I feel fine, I look fine, but then a year down the line, you're going to wonder, well, why did I gain 300 pounds, right? Versus eating a salad every day. So same thing. Like, I can look back and see all of my networking opportunities that were genuinely just regular conversations that have compounded upon each other over time, that has yielded amazing opportunities for me today.
Yeah, I think that's strong. It's funny because when I was a recruiter, I would tell people all the time that you need to have 3 people in your network so that your career can move forward. 1 is a great recruiter, such as myself. 2 would be a director of a given department or entity, not necessarily even with your own company, but someone at that level. And then a manager, so that your name can be in rooms when you're not there. And that's how opportunities kind of present themselves.
I think that's brilliant. Absolutely. I'm in a variety of Facebook groups, job related, and I see conversations every day that are only like one focus. Like, I'm only looking into getting recruiters. I have clients that come to me too, like, well, can you help me with my resume because I want to get it ready for recruiters? And I'm like, well, that's not the only place you should be focusing your attention, right? Yeah. And so, making sure that you have a strategy of different things that are in place, like not doing all the things, right? You want to be focused and be targeted in terms of like where you place your focus, but not relying on only one particular area to help you get ahead.
In your experience, do you find the hurdle to be a real thing where women feel, again, this is one of those politically correct things, so please forgive me if I say this wrong, but do you find a true hurdle in women feeling selfish about doing something for themselves when they're balancing like home and kids and all that stuff, and then trying to find a career where they actually, are happy or feel fulfilled? Is that a real thing?
No, it really is. I know that there have been studies on that.
Yeah.
And I experience it myself, and I've seen that with the women who I work with. There comes a period in life where you feel like you have to put your family first.
Yes.
And it could be a natural thing. Myself, for example, I left a full-time job 2019, where I was trying to start a family, and work was really getting in the way, and not that particular job itself, but I needed a mental space to really, move this forward. And we're grateful to God that we have a daughter today. She's 6 months old.
Oh, congratulations.
But thank you. And I know as a career coach, I struggled with that decision, because it's like, well, who am I, to be a career coach telling people to go after their dreams, but here I am taking a 2-year break. But that, having to reframe that, right? Going back to my advice earlier, is like, no, I am not quitting my dreams. It truly was indeed a break, and an intentional break. And I still did things on the side. So this is kind of a tip for those who are looking to make a transition, or if you have a gap in experience, is like, still be doing things to keep you relevant and ready for when something else comes up later. So for me, during that break, I still was doing things to keep me, relevant for a new job. And so I think as women, to kind of go back to your question, there is that level of sacrifice, and there is with our careers, that's okay. Sometimes we think our careers have to be a straight up, direction. So we're always going up, 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 up. And it doesn't have to be that way. It is okay to stop, to pivot and go, maybe a little bit left, go right, go back a little bit,
Yes,
and it's okay not to want to be at the top. Like, not everyone wants to be a vice president or be at that particular seat at the table. That's not everyone's dream job, and I know sometimes we hear coaches or influencers who are like, we want to, smash that glass ceiling. And yes, it's important as women,
sure,
even women of color, especially, to want to have access to those things, but not everyone wants those things. Yeah. And that's okay.
I'm really happy that you mentioned that part, because as a recruiter for myself, I would see potential in different candidates, and I'd say, you know what, if you do XYZ, we could take you from $45,000 a year to $85,000 a year. And I've been able to do that with several of my candidates. But on the flip side, I would see a lot of candidates say, you know what, not yet. It's not my time. It's not what I want to do. And while I understood it, there was always this sense of urgency that, the job market changes, right? And so if you don't do this now, then the opportunity may not be there when you're quote unquote ready for it. And so is there a suggestion that you have in order to identify when is the right time to make a move?
Well, I wouldn't say there is a particular right time to make a move. The way I see it is sitting down today and determining where you see yourself. Like, not necessarily a 5-year goal or a 10-year goal, but going back to, like, we're going to all experience various seasons of life, having children, having elderly parents that you have to take care of. We can't predict what the future is going to hold for us. So, but just focusing on this current season of life, where do you see yourself? And once you know where what your dream job is for this season of life, then start preparing towards that. So that way, no matter what types of opportunities come your way, they're always going to lead you to that particular goal. Yeah. And then once you've hit that goal and you're excited about it, then you keep going. You set a new goal and then you keep going. But there's never a time where you've hit that dream and then that's where it stops. Because look at this year, for example, right? The pandemic. Things happen and you have to pivot. So being aware that life is going to change, whether internally for you, your interests might change, the world around us will change, our circumstances will change, and so keeping that at the forefront, but still knowing what are your true gifts and what are your values. Like for example, I just landed a new job. I would consider it a dream job. I'm a professor now at a university where I switched from from the administration side to the academic side, and I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. Like it had crossed my mind. Yes, but I knew that my gifts one of them is being an educator. Okay. I love to develop people and coach and mentor. I love to teach. So that could be in a platform like I do now with She Leads Beautifully in my programs and my Facebook Lives. That can be in a training, maybe in a corporation where I train employees. It can be in a classroom where I work with students. See? And so a dream job doesn't have to be a particular, one thing only. It can be a variety of things. But as long as you know what your true gifts are and your area of expertise, hold on to those things and take that with you wherever you go, and you'll be content and fulfilled no matter which industry you end up going into. I run into this, I won't say argument, but this spirited conversation all the time in corporate America, where I tell people that formal education is amazing and definitely beneficial, especially for certain types of positions, right? I don't want a brain surgeon to be someone that's only practiced in personal growth. But I think that personal growth and emotional intelligence, like you spoke of earlier, is often overlooked in terms of advancing your career. Do you have a side to lean on in terms of education versus, personal versus formal? This one is tough for me because I value education. That's one of my top values, whether it's a formal one or not. But I think a combination of the two is truly important. Of course, book smarts and street smarts are really necessary. Absolutely. I feel, I think, especially in this day and age, there's so much information out there that you don't necessarily, you can't necessarily learn from just having a degree. And I've seen people and I've heard people complain, well, I've applied for all these jobs. I have the experience. I have, the degrees. Why couldn't I get the job? And so that's where the other piece of emotional intelligence comes in, is like looking at the person who's making the hiring, right? Like, what are their goals? What are they looking for in someone who is going to be filling that position, and understanding that it's not always about us in the process of our job search or career in general, that there are other people who are involved in that. And so being able to learn and understand people's emotions and desires and motivations, all of those things are necessary. So education, yes, just to have the knowledge to be able to do things and gain opportunities, but also understanding and learning people and how they operate and what they want, and how you can genuinely help them and serve them in ways that you can authentically is necessary.
Yeah, no, I think people skills go overlooked by far more than just about any other skill that people can get. It's amazing to me. We find apps and all these different tools for automation, but there's nothing that can, there's no app available for people skills. You know what I mean? There's
none. Yeah. And I saw a post the other day that really just like frustrated me. It was about a situation in a workplace where a colleague or a supervisor was saying, hello, good morning, how are you, in an email.
Yeah.
And some people were upset that the person or that someone did not do that in an email. And I'm seeing responses like, well, that's not necessary. I don't really do pleasantries. I don't care about that. Let's get straight to the point. And it's like, getting straight to the point is one thing, but there is another human on the other side that has real feelings and all of that. Yeah. And it's not to say that you have to like bend over backwards just to say hello to somebody, but those little things go a long way.
Absolutely.
One thing that I noticed, and this is for me, and I can't speak for everyone, I feel extra special, which unfortunately it has to be this way, when people take the time to learn my name. And
yes.
I have people who I've worked with for years and I know for years, but have never addressed me by name in text messages or in email. And I always remember that. And I'm like, well, what is it about you just saying, hi, Uzoma? Like, do you not know my name? And those things make a difference. And when someone remembers that or says it, even tries or acts, like within our conversations today, like I appreciate that, right? And wanting to know. And it's not because I have a name from another country. It can just be, and names are like a whole other topic for me, so I won't even go into all of that. But
yes.
It's really like it. I've done presentations about names, so I don't want to go off on a tangent. But things like that. If you have ever read that book, I always get the books messed up. But the oh man, I don't want to say it wrong, but there's a book about how to win friends
and influence people. Yes, Dale Carnegie.
Yes,
I got you.
Yeah, I believe that's in there, and it's just the basic things that we don't consider that will make a difference in your relationships and opening doors for you in the future.
Yeah,
it's the little things. Yeah. I cannot stress that enough.
No, it's huge. I think, names and people's habits, like, your Coca-Cola, my coffee. I think that those are things like all of the tall tales about corporate are true if you learn how to leverage them, right? The water cooler talk, the elevator pitch, like those are things that you can use to further your career. And I think that we, to your point earlier, I just want to get straight to the point. Those are people that, to me, that's a key indicator that you are not in your dream job, right? That you're not operating at your fullest.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. When the world is open, going to all the work events, right? Some people are like, well, I don't feel like hanging with so-and-so. I don't have time for that. I'm going home. Like, okay, well, if you don't have time for that, well, don't get upset when opportunities arise and you're not the first, your name is not the first one that's being mentioned.
Yeah. The meeting after a meeting is the real thing.
Yes, it is. And people want to work with people who they know, like, and trust. And if they feel like they don't know you or like you or trust you, then what's on paper is definitely not going to be enough.
Yeah. And it's funny because as a recruiter, I would tell people, the person that is always up first for the job is the person that's in the department, right? Because the director or the manager doesn't want to slow down the progress or the speed of the team just to train somebody else. But the second person that's in line for that job is the person that they, like you said, know, like, and trust, right? And you have to be in that room, the meeting after the meeting, the happy hour, the cocktail, the holiday party. Now, you don't want to be the holiday party. You don't want to be the person on the table that everybody talks about, after the new year. You don't want to be that person. But you definitely, I would even tell my wife, I'm like, my wife would be like, babe, when I used to be in sales, she's like, okay, you guys are going for drinks? I'm like, yes, we have to go for drinks. But, a couple of months later, years later, now I'm the sales trainer, right? And not necessarily because I was always the top producer, which I was because I'm competitive, but it was putting myself in that arena so that I could network and be seen in the leadership rooms before I even had the opportunity.
Right. That's wonderful.
Question
so
for you.
So important.
Absolutely. You have a free resource library that I absolutely love because a lot of people don't do that, right? As entrepreneurs, we feel like everything has to be for sale. Can you talk to me about why you set that up? And then I want to talk about real quickly the 7 steps to making your next career move and the clever alternatives.
Sure. Chuck, I feel like I'm losing you a little bit. The sound went out.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, I think I heard what you said about my resource library as well. So some of the things that I have inside there. Yes. So one thing that, I hear a lot with, depending on people and where they are in their career, what their budgets are. I understand that not everyone is able to, afford certain investments in their business, career, life, all of those things. And so for me, I really wanted to provide a space where I can share some of the information and helping women or anyone who comes into my community to get a head start. And so I have the Jump Drive where I house my resource library. So yes, the 7 steps to making your next career move is a free training that you can take to really just kind of get you started. Like if you're thinking about like, okay, I'm stuck right now and I don't really know what I should be doing first, then that's a really great training for you. It has a workbook to kind of jot down your thoughts and ideas and start getting your plans in place. And then if you feel a need to move forward working with me, then you have that option to do so. But otherwise, that resource can help you to just get started right now, today. Don't wait.
Yeah.
And then the 6 clever alternatives to finding the perfect mentor. I created that one because a lot of people don't know about or don't know how to find a mentor. So kind of going back to our conversation regarding finding your first job, and everyone's always going to the job boards as the first place, and they don't really realize what other options there are to the job search process.
Yes.
The same thing is with finding a mentor. So for me, finding a mentor has always been this formal activity that we were taught in school. So whether it's high school, college, wherever, it's always, okay, here's how you find a mentor. For me, there were plenty of mentoring programs that my college, my university had available. A college where I worked at, we also tried to create a mentoring program. But one thing that I realized is that a lot of these formal even when I did, even afterwards through a Facebook group that tried to be creative, they never last. You start up and you work together for probably like a few months, maybe a year or so, but after a while that relationship dies down. And I feel, so I have a whole like feeling about like a traditional formal mentoring opportunities. I feel like if you want something that's formal, I would recommend a coach. But if you're looking for mentoring, still,
yes,
there are other ways to do it that doesn't require you having that perfect mentor, the one be all end all, like can solve all your problems. I don't believe there is that one particular person.
Yeah.
I believe in having numerous mentors. It can be one person, it can be a handful of people. And so that guide really walks you through the alternatives to finding that one person who can solve all of your problems and help you be the best professional in your life.
I love it. And one of the things that I like about it, I was saying before, I think the connection cut, is that I like that you have that there because as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get into this mindset that everything has to be for sale. And I think that, there's a reason that Costco still does samples, right? Well, at least before, and so I'm excited about that. And then more importantly, I'm excited about it because there's accountability is the other half of mentorship, right? It makes no sense to have mentors and request assistance if you're not going to do the work. And I think that's what it all boils down to. So
Exactly.
I'm super, super excited about the resources that you have. And, anybody that asks me, I'm definitely going to be directing them towards that. So I have a question for you.
Thank you.
And this is going to be one of my favorite questions because of your
Okay.
career and mine. Are you ready?
Go for it, Chuck.
Is the cover letter dead?
Ooh, one of my favorite questions. It is not dead. No. I don't know who started this rumor and why it continues to be a trend. So here's my take on this whole topic.
Yes.
Cover letters are not dead. What happens is, depending on the size of the organization, right? So if you have these like larger organizations where they get like hundreds and hundreds of resumes that come through the applicant tracking system, which you mentioned a little bit earlier, and that's just really the when you apply online, the computer system that you use to apply online, that's technically an applicant tracking system.
Correct.
And so there are a number of recruiters who they just don't have time to go through everything, right? So that's one thing. But two, a lot of times people do not know how to write effective cover letters. And so I have been a hiring manager before, and I understand why people see that they're not useful, because a lot of job seekers are writing the exact same thing from their resume and turning it into a letter, into their cover letter. And so it's a waste of time for the person reviewing it. Now, the thing that makes it still relevant is if you do know how to write an effective cover letter that yours stands out from the rest, then I'm going to read it. Now, I can't speak for every other recruiter or hiring manager or whoever's on the receiving end, but I have gotten tons of applications where it's like cookie cutter, and you go to Google, which I don't always believe that Google is the best place to seek out all of your job searching like resources, because people are putting out a ton of crap out there, and everyone uses it and sees it as like, oh, this is it. And a lot of these templates are so generic. They're such generic templates like, hi, or dear so-and-so, I found this job at XYZ company, and I here's what I do. And it's like, no, tell us like why you really want to work here. Like, for real, like, why do you want to work here? And, what can you do for us, right? So turning this into, again, the mindset of the employer, why would they hire you, right? And it's not about the credentials and the experience, because guess what? Everybody who's applying for that same job have the same, not everybody, mostly everybody.
Not everybody, right.
Let me bring that back. But those who are qualified have the requirements, right? So what else can you bring to the table that is going to set you apart from everybody else? And for some reason, people are not doing that on their letters because they feel like it's a waste of time. They are being lazy. I'll just go out and say it. They're being lazy, and they just don't want to take the time to customize each of their letters for these job postings. And so there are a number of factors that make it complicated. But if ever a time where an employer says a tag letter, best believe you better attach a cover letter because it's important and they're going to read it.
I love how you position that, because again, size of organization, right? Because I've worked for companies where, we post a position and we get 700 applications for that one position. And I've also worked for companies where, we post a position and we have to actively search, for that one person. I am of the mindset that the cover letter matters based on the level of the position. Right. And for myself, that's it. So this is not to discourage the admin assistant from applying for the finance manager position, because now you have your degree in finance. But I think it's important to career map. Right.
Yeah.
And so instead of trying to make that jump from somebody that's never managed or led a project or anything, you just, you kind of done calendaring and things like that to a finance manager. How do you help people map their careers out? Because sometimes the dream job is a process, right? Versus, versus, just kind of walking in and saying, you know what, I want to be a philanthropist and I want to work for a nonprofit, and I'm going to leave my career as a housing assistant and go into that. Like, how do you help with career mapping?
Right. Like, that doesn't, like, these kind of things people want to do like overnight, and so I'm glad you mentioned that. So what I tend to do is earlier on in my program, I start with creating a dream job wish list. And there's a number of things that I include on that wish list. And that is kind of like the guiding, I don't say guiding light, but it's a tool to help my clients really focus on where they want to go. And so even if an opportunity comes around that may not be a dream job, but it could be a stepping stone that they can do for a year or two, then it's okay. But sometimes what happens is people don't have that tool, or they don't know where they're going. And so their career starts going in different areas. So like one perfect example, a lot of my clients have come in to me where they've been working in the same industry for about 15 years?
Yes.
18 years. And I'm like, okay, well, how did you find this job? And, how did you end up here? They're like, well, out of college, I was talking to my network, or I found this random position, and I just ended up staying. And so what happens is they get stuck because they haven't created a plan or a goal for where they wanted to go. They just kind of went with the flow, went through the motions and stayed somewhere. And so if people are not if they don't know where they're going, they're going to end up lost.
Yes, absolutely.
That's just kind of you have to really sit down and figure out where you want to be. And it's not going to happen overnight. You're probably going to have to, get some additional certifications, or maybe go back to school. Like, not everyone has to go back to school. That's one thing I always say too. Like, don't immediately jump to getting a degree because you may not need it. And so, just kind of knowing where you want to go, and then kind of planning out, okay, well, what are the steps that you're going to need to get there? Who do you need to know? And not saying like networking in terms of like, oh, someone's going to give you a favor and hand pick you for a job. Not at all. Like, when I say networking, I mean just finding the right people that you can do research with, or you can conduct research in terms of like informational interviews. So finding out like what types of jobs will be good for you, because you might come in one day and say, I want to do this, but then you go and volunteer doing similar work, and you're like, you know what, I actually hate this. So just going out there and actually trying it out first.
I love
that's kind of what I do.
Again, see, that's why I'm excited to have this conversation, because I think that even though this podcast is a platform for people to hear from entrepreneurs that have done the things that they're trying to do, I think that it's important that we help shorten the learning curve, right? And this is a avenue that a lot of people don't discuss in mass, because of course social media, everything is build your business, start your business online, and you have to have 7 streams. Okay, but not everybody's really built for that, right? And I think that one thing, you have to know what you're built for, but 2, there has to be a platform for people to understand that furthering your career is a form of entrepreneurship, right? Because when it is. I think when you're able to design what you do for a living, it doesn't feel like necessarily going to work. Now, I know, the waking up in the morning and the commute and all that good stuff before COVID, that's one thing. But it's, can you speak to that real quick? Like, it's definitely a form of entrepreneurship, designing your career.
No, it is. That's why I talk a lot about personal branding. Like, you are the service, right, that you are providing to the organization. So you have to first learn how to sell yourself for the opportunities, and then produce actual work when you get there. And so a lot of people don't think about that personal branding piece. And resume is one piece of that, a cover letter, but there's so much more. For example, like utilizing LinkedIn. People are not utilizing LinkedIn the way, that they should be. And granted, every field relies on LinkedIn for like job searching, but that's why I share my philosophy on this, is that you don't use LinkedIn just for the recruiting features. You don't use it just for the job board features. There are other things that you can use it for. So I had a client who wanted to move to another state. Well, who can you find on LinkedIn that you can connect with that lives in that state, right? So you may not find the actual job through LinkedIn, but you can meet people who can help you in other ways to getting you to that place. So again, having that dream job wish list and knowing the direction you want to go, you are very clear on what opportunities to pay attention to and to what kinds of people can help you. But even those who are looking to start a business and who are like, oh, this 9 to 5 is not for me. It's like, well, guess what? Like you said, it's very similar. Right. You're still going to have to talk to people, going through sales, still networking, still going to have conversations, so all of these things. So you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it. Like your boss just changes, right? Like you go from, having someone call you into the office for a meeting or, updates to being your own accountability and then serving people. Yeah. So it's a thing. How did it feel when you got your first testimonial? Like, I've looked at your site and I spent a couple of days just kind of diving in, and the way that people speak about your services, it felt good. You know, like how did that feel when you first started getting those to roll in?
Well, being early in business, I didn't realize how much the testimonials were really, what do you call it? Necessary, for
Yes.
one thing, getting clients, right?
Right.
But two, I think it just reminds me of who I am and how much I am able to inspire others. So not even necessarily just the type of work that you can find a career coach anywhere, right?
Yeah.
If you just go to Google and type in a career coach, you can find one there. Or if you find somebody online, Facebook is gonna inundate you with ads of a variety of
Yes.
a variety of career coaches. But the one thing that has warmed my heart upon reading all of those, I just kind of realized that there was a special gift that I have in terms of really seeing people for who they are and having a genuine desire to see people win. And that is what's in my heart. And the fact that my clients have seen that and that it's reflected in the work that I'm actually doing, that is something that's been so meaningful to me. So when I got the first one, it's like, wow, this is so great. But then to keep seeing it over and over and over again, it's like, okay, God, whatever you're doing with me, thank you. And
Yes.
at this point now, it's beyond being a business, to be honest. And it's my life mission at this point. So whether I continue to do it through She Leads Beautifully or any other way, I want to continue to serve.
I love it. A couple more questions before we wrap up. Like I said, I always want to be respectful of your time. What do you wish you would have learned in terms of structurally setting up your business that you advise someone else if they are going to launch out on their own?
Focus on the basics. I know for me, I can only speak for being like an online business, for example.
Sure.
A lot of times we follow these big name online marketers, business owners, and they're like, start with Facebook ads and, create an email list, which I still believe that's really important when you first start off.
Yeah.
Or doing webinars and doing all these like high, like top level advanced strategies to grow your business. And while they may appear to be a fast track to gaining an audience or gaining clients, you really have to start with the basics. Going back to the conversations piece and meeting people and talking to people when you first get started, because you don't know what you don't know. Like I started off thinking I wanted to be a career coach. I wanted to help women, dress a certain way and be great in their careers. Like that wasn't my thing, right? And then that evolved into like writing resumes and cover letters. But I hate writing resumes and cover letters. I'd rather coach you and teach you how to do it.
Yes.
And so I think I would not have realized I'm selling all this stuff, and doing all the higher end strategies to kind of sell it and push it. But at the end of the day, it's like I had to like literally this year before I had my baby, I had to pull all the way back and say, you know what? Something is not fitting. I'm not really operating in my zone of genius where I feel like that I'm really loving what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so slow down and talk to people. Try out different methods before you like create a whole new website and a whole logo and all. Like, you don't need all that when you first start because it's going to change.
Yes.
And no matter, even if you pay for a coach and they teach you their strategies and they show you a fast track, that's fine. But you still have to crawl before you're going to walk.
Yeah.
And so don't forget that as you're growing your business.
Love it. What does the word vision mean for Uzoma Obidike?
Vision?
Yes.
Ooh. Well, vision is big for me because if you're familiar with Clifton Strengths, formerly known as Strengths Finder, it's one of my favorite assessments. My number one strength is futuristic. And
nice. I have to go back and look and see what mine is. I don't want to throw you off, but I have my Strength Finder's book is my Strength Finder's book is literally on the side of my bed right now, and I read it once a year.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, I love talking about strengths, and so yes, my number one is futuristic, and I do believe there's a lot of importance in terms of like looking at the past and like where we've been and how to use that to go forward. But for me, I am motivated by what's ahead. And when I think about clients or anyone who is struggling in their current space, it's like, think about what's ahead and all the amazing things that could be, right?
Yes.
even if you don't know if you can get there or not. And so for me, I have been driven, my entire life and career has been driven by what's ahead and what could be. And so by setting that vision, setting that plan, just having those little goals in place, are just kind of the motivating factors to help me actually take that first step to go forward. So if you don't have that vision, then how do you know what step to take?
Yeah. God bless your husband and my wife, because I think people like us that are always looking forward, we walk that fine line between being grateful and unsatisfied, right? Like we always want to start with the next thing or make the thing that we're working on bigger, better. And so that's why I asked about what that word meant for you, because it's hard to as visionaries. I think it's no, I was just saying, as visionaries, I think it's harder for us to slow down sometimes, right? To work with everybody else. Last question. Well, maybe second to last question. If you
Go for it.
Yeah, no. So my second to last question, do you have a preference between startups and established companies in terms of dream jobs because of the mobility that's available at startups?
Well, I don't think I have a preference. I think it's the preference of the person and what their goals are and their values.
Nice.
So if someone wants to be in that kind of environment with a startup, then by all means, then definitely put that on your list of things to do. Yeah. In terms of getting your foot in the door, so if you're making a career transition, it may be easier to start with a smaller organization than to try to go to, say, a Google or an Amazon or something like that, right? Certain levels up.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my recommendation. So depending on the types of roles that somebody wants, if you're making a transition, it might be easier to start with a startup or a smaller organization. But it really just depends on everyone's individual situation. But in general, the first thing I said was, what do they want? And then two, it might be helpful to start somewhere like that, a smaller organization.
I love it. Have you found that with the people that you work with, have you found that it is more conducive to put a process together, or to put I don't want to say a curriculum, because nobody wants to have another job finding another job, right? But it kind of is.
Right.
But have you found it that there's a delivery mechanism, being online or video or conference calls? How do you best position yourself in front of your clients?
Okay, great question. So for me, I do have a framework that I utilize, and I only have 2 programs right now that are available.
Okay.
And the way that I work is I have a framework called the Full Bloom Framework. And when I coach clients, something that's important for me is that I'm not going to just have you on a call and just talk about your feelings and what you might want to do. There has to be some structure. So my work, there is a blend of consulting or strategy and also coaching along the way, and it was uniquely designed that way. And so my process, there are 3 overarching themes. The first one is career clarity, and the second one is personal branding, and the last one is relationship management. And so I have 6 steps that fall underneath those 3 areas. And I do have a curriculum. So there's a mixture of video, there's text content, there are images, there's audio, all of that I have in a learning management system where my clients can go through. It is self-paced in terms of you don't have to sit on a call with me to go through it. You can do it at your own time, but then there are scheduled calls or email support and audio text messaging support that are part of that. And so my primary program is called Network to Dream Job.
Okay.
And it helps women in stalled careers go from being stuck in a career rut to finally landing their dream job. And so I'm really proud of the framework. I'm proud of the process, because not only have I gone through it, my clients have gone through it. If you're looking to move up at work, so I don't offer direct programming for those who are looking for promotions at work or starting a business, but this framework doesn't apply. So I'm really pleased with it. So it's something that you can take with you and use for life, for sure.
It is so easy to see, after talking to you, it's so easy to see why you're having the success that you have. your energy is amazing. You are,
Oh, thank you.
of course, yeah. So you got me talking in my high voice. That wasn't supposed to happen.
You know what it is. I love it.
One of the one of the quotes that I saw on your page, it's a Maya Angelou quote, but
Hey Chuck, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's been going on with the connection, but I lost you again.
Can you hear me now?
It feels like you're going. Yeah, it's like you're going out, but I can hear you now.
No worries. I was gonna say real quick, one of the quotes that I saw on your page that I really really loved because it's one of my biggest points of advocacy is you mentioned, and it's a Maya Angelou quote, but you mentioned all great achievements require time. How do you help people, in closing, how do you help people, or what is your thoughts process around managing expectations?
Managing expectations. Okay, so part of that went out. So managing expectations as to what? I'm sorry.
For your clients.
Oh, okay. Their expectations of me?
No, just around their job search.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No worries.
So I think, yes. So I think for managing my clients' expectations around the job search is to keep an open mind. There's one theory that I like to reference. It's called the happenstance theory by the late John Crumboldt.
Okay.
And it's about, putting yourself in places where chance opportunities can find you. And so it's one thing to say, okay, this is the dream job that I want and that I'm seeking to attain. It's good to have that goal, but kind of going back into like not only having like one particular strategy, but in this case here, it's like, okay, have that goal, but also continue to put yourself out there in other ways so that you can be, in air quotes, like lucky for things to fall into your lap, right? So like I mentioned, like my new role that I just received, for example, or that I just attained, I was minding my business and I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I see all those amazing things that you're doing with career development and your higher education background. I found this opening and I think it will be great for you,
Yeah.
And so by being willing to show up on social media, right, and not even just for my business, but just as me, as part of my personal brand and what I'm trying to do, that presented itself for me to find this job to find me, for example. And so, I mean, other things too, meeting new people, volunteering for different, opportunities, of course, within limits so that you're not like overwhelmed and doing all of the things, but going to events, hopping on Zoom conferences, the things that and not even just within your industry, other people's industries too.
Yeah.
Think outside the box. And so when you put yourself in other spaces where things, where you normally wouldn't go, you'll be surprised at how many amazing people you will meet. And then from there, the kind of opportunities that will result from that over time.
I love it. There's so many things that we could talk. We got to do this again because there's so many more topics. Like I think what you just mentioned is finding industries within the industry, right? Like I think people think that healthcare is all, patient driven, but there's finance there's marketing there's so many different industries within various companies that we don't touch on. So we're definitely going to have to do this.
And like
again.
with me being in education, I spent a lot of time away from that recently as I was growing my business, and a lot of things that I'm learning in the business space, I'm applying to my coaching clients.
Yes.
So if I wasn't in this space, like I would not have gotten this additional knowledge that could open a lot of doors for people in their 9-to-5s that they just would never have known.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what we can learn when we step outside of our comfort zone and our normal networks and our normal environment.
Yeah. I think we got to stop going to work with blinders on.
Yes.
I think that's it. What's next for Uzoma?
Well, what's next for me on my priority list? So talking about vision, one of the downsides of having like this futuristic strength is that I want to do everything.
Yes.
And so I have a handful of things that I want to do, which she leads beautifully, but they've been tabled for right now. Being a new mom, wife, I want to focus on my family.
Yes.
Starting this new job, I want to focus on that. But also, too, I want to finish my PhD. And so that is my priority as I end out 2020 and move into the new year. So my goal is to graduate in sometime in this next year. So that is my focus.
I love it. I love it. Well, as we wrap up, let everybody know where they can find you online because I demand that my visionaries make sure that you're part of their network.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, two places you can find me is on my business website, so sheleadsbeautifully.com, or you can just use the hashtag sheleadsbeautifully to find me anywhere on social media. Of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love new connections, so come and say hi and let me know that you found me on this Hawk Vision podcast. And that's really it.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Hawk Vision podcast with the founder, the great, the unbeatable Uzoma Obidike of She Leads Beautifully. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe across all your media platforms. Check out the merchandise store. I know it's hoodie season, so if you're cold, put on your visionary hoodie, and make sure you share this episode with other visionaries just like
Representing East Oakland, man.